So what we're going to do now is we're just going to have a little bit of a freestyle where I just kind of use all of the tools I've just taught in this section to create some interesting looking art pieces. So let's start with a repeat grid tool. Get a little thicker, and let's go down to repeat, and let's do radial. Let's increase the instances really high, and let's do the radius right about there, just kind of seeing what looks really cool. Let's add a gradient to this. Let's do kind of the warm and cool colors I tend to like to use. You can use whatever you want. Let's do a cool color. There we go. Ooh, wow. It's almost like an optical illusion. So let's say I want to expand this and edit it further. I'm going to go up to Object, Expand. I'm going to go ahead and expand it. So now it's all this one big vector object. I almost wonder, what if I were to, and this is totally experimental, I haven't done this quite this way before. I'm going to go to Object, and what if I were to repeat it again? What would happen? Like, what kind of crazy stuff are we going to have? All right, so let's reduce it. Let's put it in the middle. Ooh, that's really interesting looking. Let's increase the instances. Whoa, that is a little bit too crazy. And let's see if we can expand the radius a little bit. Ooh, that looks really neat. I wonder if I reduce the stroke, if I could see the details better. So let's reduce the stroke, and I can see the details a lot better with that. Look at that. That is so complicated. There's no way I would ever be able to create that with a pen and paper. So look at that. Look at the complexities of that. It's just beautiful. Illustrator is just beautiful. So let's make that a solid color. Kind of see what we have here. And another thing we could do is I have this gradient. What if I were to take one of these sides and make it 0 opacity, so like transparent basically. So I'm going to take this one blue side and make it completely transparent by changing the opacity to 0. So now half of it's fading into a color. So that makes it look really, really interesting doing that. So let's see if we can't do super bright color. So when you zoom in here, you can see how awesome that is. Look at that. What if I, I know this sounds crazy, but what if I were to do it again? I gotta save this because I don't know what's gonna happen to my computer. I am just trying to push the limits here of this computer. Let's do a radial. Oh my goodness, is my computer gonna break? I'd love to find out how. Wow. That's really interesting. So let's see what happens now if I increase the instances of this. And if now it's getting a little too crazy. Let's bring the radius down. Yeah, that's getting a little too crazy. So let's go ahead and get back. I do like that. It's a little less crazy. So look at that. That is beautiful. So yeah, I like how that turned out. Let's say you created a really interesting pattern and you want to show it off. I wanted to talk about how I kind of presented it in Photoshop. So I'm an illustrator and I'm just going to drag my creation into Photoshop. And I'm going to put a nice high contrast background in there. Let's just do a very deep purple. You do not have to use the colors that I pick at all. And so what I'm going to do is, this looks okay as is, but sometimes adding a nice little lens blur can kind of help make it look a little more kind of polished and professional. So I'm going to take the layer that I just brought in, it's a Vector Smart object now that I dragged it in from Illustrator, and I'm going to go up to Filter, and I'm going to go to Blur Gallery, and I'm going to do an iris blur. So there's lots of different ways you can blur things in Adobe Photoshop. Let's try the iris blur, which is going to be able to blur it along an iris, similar to a camera, how it focuses on the foreground or focuses on a specific point, and everything else around it gets blurry. We're going to do that, and let's expand it out. You have two different things you can expand. You have this outer circle, which is anything outside of the circle is going to be blurry, and anything inside is going to be sharp. And you can also adjust the inside, so you can change kind of the radius, how much it's basically kind of softened. So let's soften it quite a bit so it doesn't look super stark. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Click OK. And it just adds kind of a little bit more of a polish or unique look to it. You can kind of see how I applied it on this example right here. Just kind of showing you how I did a little bit of polish on these in terms of presentation. Have this wow. I'm going to go up to Object, Repeat, and click on Radial. And if you do radial and you do this crazy thing, I guess you can come up with some really interesting looking items, just like we did with the traditional transform tool. But let's say we just want to do a quick poster, and we want to have this kind of look. So let's do just 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 instances, and we can change the radius so that all these are kind of in a square. So let's say we have it like this. So now we kind of instantly made this shape. Of course, we can change this type tool to whatever we want. And it's kind of really neat. So let's say we duplicate this. All sorts of stuff you can do. I can almost see this as part of a poster.